How's it going, everybody? My name is George Brooks, and I'm one of the founders here at Crema. And if you've been paying attention to our channel recently, we've been talking a lot about one of our internal innovation apps called Vera. So go back and watch the videos where we talk about how we got started with Vera. Actually, go before that and learn about what Innovation Lab and Venture Lab is at Crema and why we do it. And every other Friday time that we spend time to dial down our client work and work on our own projects to learn and grow and maybe make a real product. We wanted to tell the story of what it was like creating one of these solutions. And so Vera has been that story. So we start off first telling you just a little bit about how it got started, where it's going, what it's been like. And that was with Pamela and Louise. And then in our last video, we talked about how we created a design system, how we branded Vera, and maybe where that design system's going. And that was with Pamela. So today we're gonna get nerdy with Luis Chagas. And I'm really excited. Thank you so much, Luis, for joining me today so we can jump in and talk about how you and the team have built Vera.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be able to come here and talk about what devs do and talk about Vera. It's a very exciting product right now.
I am not a dev. We know this. I love working with devs, and I stay just knowledgeable enough to be annoying. I would use, you know how people say knowledgeable enough to be dangerous? I'm not dangerous. I'm just annoying. And so I love nerding out and talking about how things are built. I'm just going to plug it real quick. If you also love this content that we're putting on our YouTube channel and on Crema as general, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. We're working really hard to make sure that we're telling you the stories about why and how we create products that help individuals and companies to thrive. So make sure to smash that like button. Let's go ahead and kick it off. We started Venture Lab beginning of 2019-ish timeframe. What led you or what drew you in? This wasn't your pitch, it was Pamela's pitch. What drew you into working on a plant app with Pamela and her team?
So I will be completely honest with you. Before Vera, I had never owned a plant. I wasn't really into plants. Plants were definitely not part of my life aside from seeing them and being like, oh, there's a plant. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But what caught my attention was how simple the problem was. Whenever Pamela pitched the problem, I was like, wow, this is a problem that is very approachable. It's simple. It's easy to understand. It does not require much explanation. People have plants and their plants are dying, and we can try to help that. So I saw lots of potential in that
So
problem.
you were drawn to a simple solution, something, especially within the constraints of Venture Lab, where we only have these every other day or every other week time, at least initially. You knew there was going to be constraints, and so pick a simple solution, go after.
Yeah, even though that's not exactly what we originally proposed.
Okay, so jump into that.
That was the solution with hardware, and it's definitely not one of our expertise. I mean, we play with it. We can dabble a little bit with doing hardware stuff, but definitely not what we do best.
So to give a little context, if people don't know or didn't see that previous video, when you guys first pitched the idea, it was still going to be a plant care app. That was the goal. But we thought that one of the big issues, or you guys thought one of the big issues, was that you needed to help people realize when they needed to water their plants. And how could we tell them that if we didn't know when they watered their plants? And so we started looking into a potential, it was a watering sensor, right? Or a moisture sensor. What was that?
So we started playing with a tiny computer called Raspberry Pi. I've got it right here.
That's right. I called it an Arduino board earlier, but it's a Raspberry Pi. That's right.
So this tiny little guy is a complete computer. You can attach a monitor here. You can connect a keyboard, a mouse, and it works just as a computer. This one even has a camera. I was building security cameras, but that's off topic. Right. But the cool thing about Raspberry Pis is that they come with these pins here at the top. They're called GPIO, General Purpose Input Output. And you can use those to connect sensors to that little computer. And then we got this sensor, and this is a moisture sensor.
I see it. Even looks like it's got the little roots going down.
Yeah. So if you stick this into the soil, you'll be able to tell how dry or moist that soil is. And that was the original idea, to build a software that would come with this telling you when to water your plant.
So you got that to work technically, right? So kind of.
Technically, yeah, it worked. We were able to tell when a plant needed water. The big problem was just like, okay, we got all these things working. How do we ship this to the client? Someone that does not understand tech,
Right.
is all about plants. How are they gonna use this?
Uh-huh. I'm sure if like my wife got that in the mail, it'd be a cool. I mean, we are trying to do homeschooling with our kids at home, and maybe that'd be a cool homeschool project, but not one if you just want to like take care of your plants. And yeah, okay, I get it. So, and we weren't planning to build some custom hardware product designs, casing and distribution or manufacturing in China or something that's not our forte, right?
And especially with the time constraint that we have, only working on this project one day every other week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm kind of curious, when you were writing, so I know that's its own standalone computer and
Mhm.
it has the sensor attached to it. You're writing, I assume, on kind of an SDK style. How does it, I guess, tell me a little bit about, because I am in the world of web development,
Mhm.
languages and platforms and libraries. What were you actually writing in order to get it to see the sensor, pull information from it?
In order to actually communicate with those input output pins, you need to write code. Typically in Python, there is a really good SDK for Python to communicate with those. If not, you can use C,
Oh,
which is
okay.
a level language to actually write and read bytes from those connections.
So as you were experimenting, primarily you were writing in Python then, right? Okay, cool. That's helpful. Okay, so we pivoted. We decided we can't. I mean, cool that we got it to work. I remember that day when you were demoing that. We were all clapping. It was a big deal when we were still allowed to be in the same room together. And you could see the moisture sensors going up and down, and we could start to imagine what that would do for a user. And there are other apps that use water sensors. We saw that out there. There was kind of looking at competitive landscape. That there's a reason that sensor exists, because people have used it in different ways.
Mhm.
Okay, so you pivoted away from the IoT, the hardware side, and really went into just saying, let's just build a great self-managed plant care app. What did you decide to write that app in, and how did you go about getting that created?
So the first thing that we decided is, do we want a website or do we want an app?
Right.
And we decided to go with the app because it's easier to distribute. You got Play Store, you got the iTunes Store, and people go to those places looking for apps. So that solves the problem of distribution. So we knew we needed a native app,
Mm-hmm.
a mobile application. And then we started to consider what options we had, because none of us really know how to write native code for Android or iOS.
Right.
But
So you're not writing in Swift or in Java for, and okay, cool.
yeah, so we needed something that would allow us to write the code only once and build two apps, one for Android, one for iOS.
Yeah.
And then we were analyzing technologies and basically chose it out of the bunch, React Native and Flutter. And Flutter was the new kid on the block. It was really cool.
And
Everybody
we
was,
have been building some other apps in Flutter.
yeah, so we just decided to use Flutter to give it a try. But the jump from web to mobile was just, the learning curve was steep given
Mm,
our time constraint to jump
mm.
into Flutter, learn Dart and how that all works and how to build native apps. The and then we found out that React Native, there's a really cool project that they kind of recommend, especially if you're coming from web development. It's called Expo. Expo acts like a bridge from this web development into mobile development.
Yeah.
So basically, Expo allows you to build your app like you're building a website. And then once you tell Expo to build, it creates one app for iOS and one app for Android. And you don't have to deal with all the native configuration.
Love it. I love it. Okay. So I know we've used Expo in the past, and we've done that with our clients too. I think some other things that Expo gives us is it called hot pushes?
Code push.
Code
Yeah.
push. Hot pushes sound cool, but code
Yeah.
push. So the ability to once it's even on the App Store, you can make almost live updates, right?
Yeah, I call them ninja updates because the users don't see them coming. They just open their apps and things might look different. So that's really handy, especially if you're trying to update and fix a small issue, but you don't want to go through the hassle of creating a whole new app and pushing it to the App Store and have your users download all of that. So you just push a quick patch.
Now, I want to skip ahead a little bit because I know, as I understand it, you've ejected from using Expo, or at least that's you're in the process of doing that. What was the why choose to not use Expo? What's the reason to leave it behind at this stage of the game?
So Expo comes out of the box with a very predefined set of native tools that you can use. And that is great at first because especially if you're coming from web development, you don't really know what all you need to do in order to configure your native app to use all
Right.
this set of tools. But Expo does not come with a predefined in-app purchase module, for example. So your app can never offer items in exchange for money using Expos because that requires native configuration. So
Which, let's be honest, we're a business. We would like to make a revenue model around this at some point. So yeah, that's
yeah,
important.
so Expo is really good to get you started, but if you're ever considering making money with your app, at some point you're gonna have to eject out of Expo, and that's fine. That bridge, that Expo bridge, gives you time to understand native configuration. So by the time you're there, you're more well equipped to make the transition.
Yeah, I think that's what's so powerful right now with development in general. There are a lot of kind of, for lack of better words, like pre-canned solutions that allow you to play around and then learn what they did. Even at the very basics of like building a website, our designers use Webflow, and Webflow is very much a drag and drop experience. But as they're doing that, they're learning the basics of CSS, and then as they start to see CSS, they're like, oh, that's like that, that thing that Webflow is doing. It just builds a framework in your head. That's great.
Yep.
Okay, so I want to pivot a little bit into, you've been working on a product team. So this is a cross-discipline team. You have designers on your team, and designer and product owner. Pamela acts as both. You have a marketing manager on your team. You have another developer you're collaborating with. What's it like, I guess, across the board, but what's it like to be collaborating with that team? And maybe let's first talk about what's it like to be working with someone handing you designs. What's that process like to be working with Pamela around the collaboration between design and development? That's a big question a lot of people ask.
Yeah, that has been nothing but great. I love this collaboration with designers, especially because I do not have an eye for design. If I try to come up with something, it's gonna look ugly. If I try to make intentionally ugly, it's even worse. So
That's great.
I need a designer,
Yeah.
and having Pamela build all the screens, and we use InVision. InVision's a tool that allows us to go and see the designs and gives us a handful of tools to inspect the design and see the color and the size and all of that and the positioning.
Right.
That's very handy for developers like me that can't design anything. So using InVision has been very, very helpful, and collaborating with a real designer is needed. If you're developing apps, you need a designer. You might think you have the eye for it, but trust me, you want a designer working with you.
It's nice to have somebody that's specializing in that, right? So that they're really just saying, I want to make this as great of a user experience, as pleasurable as possible. But I saw you guys, especially when we were allowed to be in the office, I saw you guys spending a lot of time just kind of jamming in front of your computers. Like you would sit right next to each other and think through like, okay, what if it was this way? What if we did this? I'm trying this, but it's not working. I think that real-time collaboration, you guys were making decisions really fast, right?
Yeah, InVision's a good tool that allows the designer to put the designs all in there, but at some point you're gonna need to fine tune those designs. And it's good to have this collaboration between developer and designer, because sometimes a designer will come up with something that will require a lot of effort from a developer point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And having that clear communication allows the developer to kind of bring it back to the designer and propose like changes on how to make things easier or that will not require as much effort from a developer point of view, but that will still be provide to the user a good experience and a good interface.
A lot more achievable, at least, so you can actually ship something, right?
Yeah. And yeah, I remember sitting down with Pamela side by side and pulling up the screen and like, okay, this is the app. This is what it looks like right now. What can we change to make this better? And she would be like giving suggestions and I'd be live coding and then would get to a point like, yeah, this looks good. And then
And I think what's great about that is a couple things. You guys had such a high level of trust between each other to respect each other's roles and your capabilities and your skills, but also just empathy to say, I'm going to be humble enough to say, there's certain things I might push on, but you guys had to find compromises. And I think you did that beautifully. I think it's been so cool to see how well you guys have collaborated.
yeah, compromise is the key word. We keep pushing each other back and forth. I want this, I want that. But at the end of the day, you have to come together to and agree on something that is achievable
Yeah.
and that we can ship as fast as possible.
Okay, so the two of you are working or have been working really well together, but there's other people on the team. So tell me a little bit about what it's like to be working with another developer. So Lex has been on the team for a while now. She was one of our apprentices, which is for us like a long, kind of like a more in-depth internship, like a 6-month in-depth internship where you really get to dive deep and work next to people. And then she came out of that and graduated into being a junior, basically a junior application developer at Crema. What's it like to be working with another developer? Do you feel like you're stepping on each other's toes, or how do you divvy up the work? Like, what's that experience been like collaborating there?
It's been really good. So, like you said, Lex, she's kind of a junior developer kind of level. So she'll often ask lots of questions, which that's the right
That's the
way of
point.
doing it. If you're gonna be learning something, you gotta ask all these questions and breaking down the tasks. Of course, I would not expect Lex or any other developer that's just started to make big design decisions on the architecture of the app, but you can give them smaller tasks, start with bug fixes and change this and change that, and they get used to the code base and they get used to the flow. And
Mm.
just not the code itself, but just the whole flow for developing an app. Okay, run this by the designer, make sure that the marketing approves the words we're using in this screen, and go talk to this person, go talk to the other person. Okay, now let's do some code review together. And she's been picking it up really fast. And every time she finishes a task, she'll grabs a bigger task. And before she starts, I think it's part of my job to come and ask her all the questions ahead of time just to get her thinking about what kind of solution she's going to come up with. And that's all I've been doing, just asking questions. Just like, hey, Lex, guide me through the process of solving this problem. What about this? What about that? Have you considered this? Have you considered that? And then you just let her do it.
Louise, I mean, I gotta say, you are so good at that. You're such a great coach, and I know that a lot of people desire to have someone that would be willing and have the grace and time to spend with you to learn like that. And I think that's one of the things that we try to do at Crema. We try to encourage our clients to do that. Is always have a learning mindset. And so, part of having a learning mindset is being willing to help other people learn, right? And I think that's really cool to see you guys collaborating there. And she's moving initiatives forward because we haven't fully put her on too many client projects yet. And so she has a little bit more availability to kind of keep working while maybe you get pulled away into something else. She's keeping things moving, which is really neat to see her have that autonomy and freedom to explore and learn, and then you to be able to come back in and check in, which is super cool. I love watching that happen. Okay, so let's pivot a little bit into your integrations. Let's talk about integrations. So the app is written in React Native now. You ejected from Expo. What else is the app talking to? What else have you brought in that maybe you didn't write from scratch, but you're using it as a framework to help build the app and make it better overall?
So all of our architecture as far as database and servers, all of that is on the cloud, and we've been using Firebase for that. Firebase allowed us to move quickly from the very get-go. and they provide all the scaling that the app needed so far. So we were able to accommodate 100, 1,000, 10,000 users without having to change anything because Firebase is doing that for us. So that has been very helpful. And another integration that we're adding right now is called Plant ID, which is a service that allows for plant identification through pictures. So that will be coming out soon. I'm very excited about that one.
I've tried it. It's cool. What else? I know that you guys are thinking about, like you said before, one of the reasons to leave Expo was to think about pulling in or integrating with something that would let us do payment processing or some level of exchange. Are you ready or willing yet to talk about what you're working on there? Maybe not from a future perspective, but just even the platforms that you're exploring, integrating on that side.
So all of that integration is done through Apple and Google. So we've been using their SDK, whatever they provide for us to make this communication. So we'll be selling products inside there at some
Cool.
point in the
Yeah.
future. And that integration is native because it happens between Google and Apple.
Yeah, and we understand that there's some constraints with working with third-party services, but that seems to be that you guys have been able to move forward pretty quickly. Has there been anything that you guys have run into that's been a roadblock or a challenge that has just been like, oh, that's super frustrating. I wish it wasn't like that, but you had to work around it or get through it?
Yeah, the biggest challenge that we're facing right now is providing the same experience for all the users on Android devices.
Oh
If you
yeah,
think about phones running iOS, you can probably think of 10, 15 different phones. So that's testable. We can run tests on those 10, 15 phones. But if you think about Android, there are thousands of devices around the world. Most of them don't even come to the United States. So when you see all the stats that you're receiving, all these phone models and phone brands, you're like, "Cool, what is this?" And then people will complain that like, "Hey, whenever I try to use the camera, the app crashes." And then you go check on their devices, and it's something that you've never heard of. And then at what point do you try to
Mhm.
dig and fix that, or at what point do you just say, "I am sorry, but..."
We only support these devices, right? Yeah, we have dealt with that ever since we started doing mobile, right? As a company, I think it was always the like for a long time, we actually really encouraged people to only build iOS because it was like we just didn't want to deal with it. And so I totally get that. I think it's a big challenge, especially in one that where this is a side project for us. How do we support that much feedback? Now, you just reminded me of something. You guys have translated the app. How have you gone about doing that? I mean, how do you provide a different layer of language depending on where people are at? I technically don't know how that works.
So whenever we ship the app comes with all the three languages that we support: English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And then whenever the user runs the app on their phones, we check on the language that they're using on their phones. And if they're using either Portuguese or Spanish, then we show them the versions of the app running those two languages. If not, it defaults to English.
Is that something that React offers, or is that something more of a on the base layer?
That's something that runs on top of JavaScript. So it's more
Oh,
higher level.
yeah.
So we use JavaScript. I mean, React Native is connecting to the phone to check on the user settings for the phone. So
Yeah.
it grabs the language that the user uses. And then we use JavaScript to kind of push a different set of strings or language to the
And,
user.
and it's allowed you to go global. I mean, there's people using it in countries all over the world, which is crazy. I've seen the map. It's insane.
Yeah, that's true. We're in over 130 different countries right now. And yeah.
So wild, so wild. Okay, well, let's wrap up. I have to push in a little bit. I don't even know that I know everything you guys are working on. Is there any juicy teasers or anything that you guys are excited about that you're allowed to talk about, or is that all under lock and key and super secret?
We get so much feedback asking for new features. It's crazy. I wish I could share all the feedback that we receive, but we have a couple things coming down the pipe that we're really excited about. One of them is pretty close to being released, which is Plant ID. You'll be able to take a picture of a plant and it'll give you information about that plant. And I will say that the second most requested feature right now is the ability of sharing plants with roommates
Oh
or
yeah.
spouses or people that live in your house, so multiple people can care for the same plant. So still in the works, among other things, but I'll give these two things for people to think about.
I could see that. I mean, you know, you overwater a plant and everybody thinks like, I watered it and I watered it too, or I assumed you were going to water. Okay, I get it. Cool. All right. Well, Luis, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super proud of the work that you guys are doing on Vera, and it's really exciting to see its growth. I don't know if you've hit the 40,000 mark yet, but it seems like it's really close.
Yeah.
So close. Okay, so we're almost there, which is insane to see that that percentage of month over month growth is really just hockey sticking up, which is crazy to see it happen. So thank you for sharing with us. And, you know, I'm excited to see where this goes from here. We've got a lot more in the inspiration bucket for Vera and all that's going on there. So, thank you everybody for watching yet again, another video with us here at Crema. If you haven't already, like I said, don't smash it, just click it, just gently touch that little like button, give us a thumbs up, and wherever it is, and then subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you would like to see any additional content about design, development, or the culture of product teams, drop us a comment below. We'd love to know what your questions are about how we do the work that we do, and if we can make it easier for you to do that work as well, we would love to help you out. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.